This is the Blue Water Outlook weekly weather briefing for April 29th, 2018. I'm John Felt. Well, we're starting off the week with a dome of high pressure over the area, some cooler air, more stable air, but that's going to be changing as we go through the week, and we're going to replace that with a warmer air mass and a more unstable and moist air mass. And over the last week, pretty quiet across most of the nation. The exception was the southeast U.S., fairly soaking 2 or 3 inch rain. I see a couple spots. Why do you think it's right here? Well, it's right along the Appalachians, orographic lifting that enhances the precipitation, and actually was another higher amounts by an inch, maybe even a little bit more along those higher elevations. Now, as far as snow goes, pretty much finished. I think we're starting to transition into finally our real spring type pattern. A little bit of snow along the Canadian border here and there and in higher elevations and in the northeast U.S., but for the most part all the snow is melted, and I'll be showing you in a minute where that has resulted in some flooding. Now, temperatures were below normal over areas in green and blue, above normal in areas in red, and that's going to be changing quite a bit this week. Now, because of that cool air, I'm keeping an eye on soil temperatures. 50 degrees here, this right below here, this darker shade of brown, that's the critical temperature for planting, and it's been delayed, but I think as we get into this pattern over the next week or two, that's going to accelerate north, and we're going to be catching up quite a bit. So let's keep an eye on the soil moisture anomalies. I don't see any really deep green ones saying that it's highly vulnerable towards flooding. I do see persistent ones that are in that shade of red, which is indicating very dry soils over the southwest U.S. and also Kansas, parts of western Oklahoma, and parts of Texas. Keep in mind then that as we get into the forecast discussion here, these areas here, for the most part, that's an area that can use additional rainfall, and it would be of benefit. Likewise, over areas of drought, any areas in drought, that rain is going to be of benefit for the most part, and we can see that includes, again, most notably southwest Kansas, western Oklahoma, north Texas, and other parts of the southwest U.S. Now, we have quite low stream flow over the mid-Atlantic region. You can sort of see where that boundary set up late in winter and early spring right through here, where we have high stream flows on this side and very low. So look at that very tight gradient there. We also have some high stream flow due to the snow melt and in the Pacific Northwest. So you can see here on the upper Mississippi, on tributaries and actually on the main stem as well, we have high flows, in some cases minor flooding and even some moderate flooding in red. Now, these inflows due to the melting snow were generally in this region here. So as it moves downstream towards St. Louis, that area has not received snow nor rain, so the flood wave is attenuating. So by the time we get to St. Louis, we're just getting a bump in it. So that could change, though, because there is some heavier rain further to the north. So I mentioned we were changing our weather pattern, and I think we're going into a pattern. You know, I always notice in spring that it seems like you go one way or the other. So it seems like so far we've been rebounding always back to the cold, drier side or cooler, drier side. I think we're starting to get, if not abruptly, getting into a pattern where we're going to sort of default to the warmer side, which is really the true pattern of spring. I think once we get the green up in all areas of the Midwest, that's going to anchor that in place. That means that we're going to be pulling that moisture out of the ground, and that is also going to increase the low-level dew point. Temperatures won't drop as much. So this week what we have is a jet stream bowing to the north. You can see right through here, dipping in the west, and that's going to warm up temperatures quite a bit over the middle part of the nation, really the highest temperatures we've seen so far this spring. Meanwhile, southeast and southwest, below normal temperatures. Now, the feature we're going to have to watch this week is a very active frontal boundary. I wanted to show you, remember I talked about this last week. This is a southwest flow. I mentioned that the southwest flow, you have little pockets of energy in here, and a main one is coming out through the middle of this week, and that's the one that's going to produce an area of low pressure along this boundary and a chance for heavy rain and severe storms over the central part of the U.S. And I think that's going to be the main weather story this week. So we're going to get a fairly soaking rain over parts of Iowa, Illinois, not so much in states further south. Unfortunately, the areas here that are the driest areas, they might get a little bit of rain, but not really all that much. Still need 3 or 4 inches of rain to get us back to normal. So anything's better than nothing, but it looks like the rain's going to fall over, for the most part, areas that aren't as bad off as that really need it. Now we get into May 4th through 9th. You might look at that dip in the jet stream there. You might say, well, that's cold weather. And in fact, if it was about a month ago, it would have meant that, but the jet stream's lifting to the north. And we can see that because the shades of brown. That's saying the jet stream's further north than normal. So even behind this system, I don't see much cool air. Matter of fact, look at the western U.S., unusually hot in that region. Then as we get into May 9th through 14th, sort of a west to east jet stream. This is generally a fairly quiet jet stream, with the exception of what'll be interesting here is look at this boundary here. We have cooler air in this region and very warm air here, and usually along that boundary is where it's active, and that would be that dry area. So that might be a really good sign, but that's 2 weeks out, so we'll see. So anomalies this week, very dry southeast anomaly. Looks like central part of the U.S. more active. Week 2, this is what I was saying, right along that boundary. We'll have to see. It's a ways out there, but that would be a very good positive sign if that were to occur. Weeks 3 and 4, well, right now it looks like a very large area of above normal temperatures. That's why I say I think we've sort of broken the back of winter and we're into spring, full speed ahead. And then precipitation, southeast U.S., looks like some really dry weather for a number of weeks. Now we have some hazards this week with the very dry, low humidity, warm temperatures and wind, high fire risk, critical fire risk over parts of the southwest U.S. We have a chance for severe weather Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in the Tornado Alley area of the Central Plains. And we have an area of some heavy rain possibility here outlined in green. So overall, I think what we're going to be watching this week is that system coming through in the middle part of the week with some heavy rain and possible severe weather. That's this week's briefing. Have a good week.